I used to believe that avoiding difficult conversations was the key to harmony. I treated silence like a shield, like it was a video game perk I could always upgrade to keep me safe. But that shield soon lost its purpose. It didn't protect me anymore. It isolated me, making it impossible for anyone to reach me. But I couldn't let go of the shield. Not when avoidance and silence felt like control, not fear. It felt like a protective blanket that shields me from the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of hurting and losing relationships. Even from an early age, we were taught that keeping peace was a sign of maturity, a way we could avoid problems. And when I was young, I would often keep my mouth shut whenever a misunderstanding came up, hoping that it wouldn't escalate. But silence did not prevent escalation, it deepened it. And the misunderstandings didn't just disappear, they multiplied. Because I thought that at least if I didn't have control over the situation, I could, at the very least, predict its outcome. That didn't happen only externally, it happened internally too. I vividly recall that I used to struggle with facing what's true and what's comfortable. I would often avoid the truth so it wouldn't hurt me. What seemed comfortable rather than hurtful. So I could feel peace and tell myself white lies, torn between preference and discipline, pride and honesty. I remember back in eighth grade, I believed that it was easier for me to back out of difficult decisions, like registering for that concert my mom wanted me to do, or joining clubs I was eager to join in, because I thought avoidance would give me peace. But it did just the opposite, because afterwards I'd often be hit with waves of regret and ask myself, why didn't I do it? But the answer was really simple. It was because I couldn't face the difficulties. That's when I realized something important. The difficult choice wasn't the situation itself, it was facing it. I delayed every choice thrown at me, thinking I wasn't good enough. But the real difficulty was facing myself. It was accepting that I could face the situation, that I was competent to face the difficulties. So, difficult doesn't just mean something hard to obtain, it also means something hard to face, which is why most people back out on the difficult conversations in their daily lives, even internally. Now, difficult conversations aren't just hard to face just because of our loss of words, but it is also because of the gnawing fear that we know exactly what they will say to you, which we all know won't be good. But discomfort doesn't mean harm. It means your mind is adjusting to something new. It's a signal for growth, change, or learning. Stephen C. Hayes once said, the attempt to avoid pain is what creates more pain. The clarity we get from difficult conversations might feel uncomfortable because it isn't something one wants to hear. Rather, it is something that one needs to hear, which is why avoidance feels so much more comfortable and clarity feels almost undesirable. And psychology explains why avoidance feels comfortable because it provides immediate relief from anxiety and stress, which is also a protection mechanism. But avoidance does not eliminate conflict, it just moves next door. Silence teaches us comfort and helps us keep control. It eliminates every risk of a what if. It's a bubble that helps us keep safe. But what if what it doesn't teach us is that avoidance leaves gaps? Unfilled gaps that are filled with imagination, eroded trust, and festering problems. But what happens when you finally step out of that bubble? When you suddenly stop avoiding it? Of course, stepping out of our comfort zone doesn't immediately make us fearless, nor does it give perfect outcomes from facing something one has avoided. But it does establish something far more powerful, an act of perseverance. Because when we step out of that bubble, we aren't encaged anymore. We don't become a silent observer, we become the main character. You stop letting those gaps widen. Instead, you fill them. But difficult conversations don't always end up how we want them to. They won't always end up in agreements or meet our expectations. They can even end messy. But you will realize that those difficult conversations that you faced didn't end up as bad as you had imagined they would. And success will carry itself in those outcomes, not in the form of agreement, but in the form of being understood and understanding the other person. This doesn't only go for conversations with others, but it also goes for the times you chose comfort over clarity, the decisions you've been delaying, and the conversations you avoided with yourself because change almost feels like a loss. But even when clarity is uncomfortable, when it feels difficult to face, it forms another path. It gives direction, whereas avoidance brings delay. When I started facing difficult conversations, I wasn't suddenly fearless. I wasn't suddenly brave, nor was I confident. But what I did was honest. And this honesty was something that grew with facing these difficulties. Every time I faced a conversation that seemed intimidating, the next one always seemed less scary. Because this exposure makes you stronger, not because it is easy to do. And maybe that is what all of us needs to do. Instead of focusing on the wants, start shifting to what you need to hear, what is worth going through to help you grow. So, so next time you feel as if you need to build those walls and avoid difficult conversations, take a quick pause and ask yourself, is it the truth I want? Or is it really the comfort? Because truth isn't something you avoid, nor is it something that you always want to hear. It comes from honesty and clarity. And to achieve clarity, we must be brave to push through the discomfort. And avoiding difficult conversations, once again, leaves gaps for what ifs. But clarity gives a solid expected outcome without letting those imaginations run wild. So, so difficult conversations don't take away harmony or safety from our lives. They allow us to sit safely with discomfort and redefine it. Thank you.